Welcome everyone to the first Graphisoft Community Workflow webinar for this new series. It's going to be a monthly series that we will be running. I'm your host, Nathan Hildebrand, and outside of this, I am an architect based in Brisbane, Australia. So I'm helping Gordana, who's on the line here as well, to host this series and bring a bit more technical presentations from users all over the world to the community. Now, if you want to potentially present one of the topic of your interest, feel free to reach out to me through the Graphisoft community, then drop me a private message if you'd like to participate. But today we have Karoly Horvath, who's a senior architect from Cotty Parker Architects. Now he's based in Perth here in Australia. Now, I normally like to go through people's bios, but I find more interesting to talk about what they do outside of work. So Karoly is an avid bike rider, and outside of doing Archicad stuff, he likes to ride his bike around Perth. And he told me he likes to avoid the hills. And I think that's something to do with something about, making sure he doesn't makes his life easier for himself. But I think that also kind of aligns with the topic we're talking about, or he's talking about today, with regards to door and window schedules from small to large projects. Now, Karoly has over 20 years experience globally, firstly in Europe and here now in Australia, in working in Archicad and utilising BIM processes. So one of the things I think this topic that Karoly picked, I think is a really good one to start us off. And I'm sure he's going to touch on a few of these key things that I think are really, really important. And primarily, I think that one of the really important things is that these things are in every single project. So it's not like you get away from them. And we have to find a way to present them in a manner that is suitable for our recipients of this information. So what I'd like to do, first of all, one of the other things I've also forgotten to do is introduce Gordana in terms of the community manager, and Gordana's here as well, participating and helping out with the webinar today. But
hi everyone.
Gordana, are you there? But now I'd like to hand over to Karoly to present this exciting topic today. Please place your questions in the chat throughout the presentation, and we'll have a proper Q&A session at the close to go through your questions you may have. So take it away, Karoly.
Thank you very much, Nathan. It was a good introduction. Now, jump straight into this lovely first scene, which is all about doors. Just give me a moment. I set my other screens as well. Great. So, welcome everyone. As Nathan said, we are going to talk about doors and door schedules today. So there you go. Let's talk about door schedules. Probably this is one of the most boring things that an architect can do during the project, but this is something that we have to do on almost, well, I would say every project. So that's why let's say, why do we schedule doors and windows? Well, to start with, like Nathan said as well, there are doors and windows in every single project. We can't avoid them. And typically, there are a lot of them. Therefore, because there are so many of them and they are there in every single project, we would like to document them quickly and efficiently. That's right. So in order to do so, we want to utilize the smarts of our BIM system, rather than just keep drawing them as line items, obviously. Now, when we're looking at doors, we have to think about what kind of projects do we have, and would the project type make any difference in how we actually approach door and window schedules? So, of course, if we are looking at small projects, we can say that, okay, there are houses, like smaller houses, which would have, I don't know, 8, 10, 15, 20 doors, not too many. or we could have some smaller industrial projects. Again, potentially not too many doors in these projects, but we still have to document them somehow. If we are looking at small projects, as I said, there are not too many doors. Therefore, they can be scheduled individually. There's nothing majorly bad going to happen if we just draw or schedule out every single one of them. It's not even a problem if we say that we elevate every single one of them, because the whole lot is likely to be able to fit on 1 or 2 A1 sheets. That's not the end of the world. No one's going to break their back on producing that many sheets. And if I look at a small project, like you see, it's an example of one of our smaller projects, it can easily fit on a single sheet. You might end up with some general notes that are typical for all projects that outline the codes that we use and all the typical details. And then you might end up kind of elevating them all in a more of a drafting fashion. And you might have a tabulated schedule to list out these doors in these projects. Now, what is the real challenge if we go into larger projects? So when we go into larger projects, for example, mixed-use projects, we will see things like our Ritz-Carlton here in Perth or the Queen's Wharf project in Brisbane. They're massive. We have thousands and thousands of doors and windows in these projects, which means we have to come up with some smarts rather than draw or schedule every single one of those doors. So like I said, in these ones, loads of doors, we need to so in order to deal with the number of elements in a project, we have to somehow separate them into categories. And that will be an important thing to decide what kind of categories we actually need. We also realize that we don't need to elevate every single one of them. We would like to not cut down so many trees and print so many drawings. So, but it's very likely that the documentation for doors and windows is going to spread over several A1 sheets. So it's a lot more than for simple projects. Now, here is this topic: what kind of categories? And so I think it is obvious that we need to split all the doors into different categories, but what are they and why we need to do that? In order to do it right, we somehow have to align the industry requirements and our documentation software capabilities, in this case, Archicad. In other words, we don't want to come up with a schedule format that our software cannot support. But on the other hand, we don't want to produce a schedule format that the industry can't use or would be struggling to use. So therefore, we have to separate elements, in this case, doors and windows, into groups that are logical to be kept together from an industry workflow point of view. But at the same time, our software can schedule them together. What do I mean by schedule them together? As we hopefully all know, when we look at Archicad's scheduling capabilities, we can only schedule elements together that have the same identical parameter sets. It just leads me to a point where I say that to achieve that, we kind of have to restrict ourselves what door and window objects we use. If we look at the default Archicad doors and windows, technically they can be used for as long as we don't use anything else other than the Archicad standard doors and windows. Because if we start mixing, then we will find that we won't be able to schedule them together. Or there are a few I just mentioned. Apparently, all these ones are Aussie third-party tools that I have used in the past. I'm pretty sure there are others as well, but these are the ones that I know of that provide very usable, very good door and window objects, which all have the exact same parameter set. Therefore, we can schedule them together. Now, let's move on. So, what are the main categories that I think that we need to look at? It's actually three main categories. And this is something that I gave a lot of thinking that what we need. And in the past, I tried many different options, but ended up with these three as the main ones. So we may have some tabulated schedules, which means just pretty much like an Excel table, where we can produce some typical elevations. These typical elevations may even be line drawings because they are typical. They occur in every single project. And then we don't need to produce types because we will most likely list every single individual door in the project. If there are 2,000 of them, then we list every 2,000 of them, because that's the only way we can make sure that every single one of them is captured. My experience is that the builder is going to want every single door to be scheduled, because that's how they are going to manage their procurement. So then the important thing is that every single element has to have a unique identifier number. Something it's similar to a GUID, that it is unique to that one door element and that one only. There can't be two door elements with the same number, same identifier. And once we have that, we can schedule each door as a separate line. The next typical major category is the drawn or elevated schedules. When do we need them? We need them if the door has some substantial glazing in it that we need to show the extent of it, or it has some extensive other things like louvers or some other additional elements. In these cases, we will need to do some typology somehow. Then we will need to elevate them and show them as an elevation. And again, they will still have to have a unique number, so that we need to capture every single one of them individually as well. And we can schedule them as a line item as well as an elevation or elevation types. And then there is the third one, which I'm just showing or just touching on it. I'm not going to talk too much about it, which is the complex items, which is more like curtain walls or complex glazing elements. They are not documented. Typically, they are not documented using the automatic schedules. We can't use the automatic schedules to document these. They will typically be just elevations and plans generated from the model and documented as traditional drawings, something like this one. All right. So let's look into the tabulated door schedule for a moment. The key to this, and this actually relates to all other schedules as well, we have to somehow number these doors. And every single company will number them slightly differently, but the principles are the same. We have a door where we can find a door numbering system code, which in this case, it says it's a door. And then we have another field that is the zone number or something that identifies where that door is actually located. And then it has an ID, a sequential number. Also, to make it absolutely sure that it is unique to that specific door, we can add the level. And if we read the whole line together, that is sure is going to be a unique number for that element. All right. To go further, we need to have different categories within the tabulated schedules or within the doors anyway. And how do I do that? If I select one of these doors, let's select this template one. If I look at my properties, I did create a property that is called door numbering system. Okay, and from that property, I can choose which door schedule I want this element to send to be listed in. As you see, in this case, we do have the doors that are the 6200 series, and then we have gates that will still be on the same series, but in a separate sheet. Then we have glazed doors and windows and louvers separated into different schedules. Okay. And then we have all these other properties of the doors that we can choose. And they are just properties created for each element. And therefore we can say choose these elements from here, which means that you can. Sorry, there was just a little bit of a problem behind me. So we set all of them up, and then select from them and fill out our schedule. The next one, as you see, we can have all of them related to a room, and based on that, we can look at a bit more about the numbering. So the numbering, the zone component of that can come either from the zone, reading the element from the zone tool, or there must be, and in this, the problem with this one, then the zone must be individually placed and can't be part of the module. If we are using modules, that could be a problem. Or it can read the module master ID, which is reading from the module, and then the zone can be part of the module in this case. Or third option maybe is that it can be the zone ID. Bear in mind, zones, just like as any other element, have IDs. And in this case, we can read it from the zone tool. And if they are part of a module, then the master ID will be added to the element. Therefore, it will become a unique number. If we look at all of these, we will see that, okay, we can put together a door schedule. And in this door schedule, we can fill out all the different properties that we need in order to document that door. I will just look into two of these that are a bit more interesting. Is the door leaf finish, if you look at that, and the frame finish. How did I get them into this schedule? Because as we know, if I look at the surfaces settings, I can choose the surfaces for the doors from this list. And to start with, I have used for these doors only these two, and they are listed in my surfaces. And I list the code for that surface and some sort of a description of that surface. Into the schedule, I want to see obviously only just the code. So I have to split the code from the description. In order to do that, I would need to have some trick. I don't know if anybody guessed it, but we know that we can't get those figures into the properties because Archicad can't read the properties just yet. So we have to go back to our IFC. And if we look at the IFC translators, then if we look at our property mapping, it's on my third screen. I just brought it over. As you see, I have created an IFC property that has the finish, and in there I can add library part parameters. And this is where it becomes really important that all of my library parts have the identical parameters, and then we can pick whatever we need. It is a lot of a trial and error. You will have to figure out what is that property that you can use. We can add it here. I already added that, and then we can create a splitting rule. Great. And in this case, because our naming convention says that we will have a colon and then to separate the code from the description, that splitting code will do the job. And that's how we can get the finishes into the schedule. Okay, I just cancel out of these ones. Now, let's have a look what it will look like on a sheet. That's a typical starting sheet for all these schedules. And as you see, there's a component of it that is nothing but normal text that appears on every single project. The rest of it, however, is actual schedules. They are scheduling the properties from the door. So all the typical ones. In one set of the properties, what I did is that these are the properties. When I'm working with the doors, I have these option sets, and they are set up as such that we have a dash to separate the description from the code. And I have another set of properties that will split the description from the code. So when I'm working with it, I can easily select the property that I want. Just one important thing to remember is if I look at my option sets, do not click the allow multiple choices, because as soon as you do that, we cannot use expressions. Okay, so it's important that you have to think through the kind of headings of your schedule such that from every single list, you will always only need to select one element. Okay, so if I go back to my door, I select this door, that's what I mean is that I'm here and I always can only select one from the list, not multiple. So it takes a bit of thinking to make sure that you would never want to select two of these. Good. And then if I go back to this schedule, there's another interesting thing in this that I really enjoy is when we are talking about frame types. That can be a big topic on its own, but what we did recently is when I go back to my door, I can go to my frame type property. And as you see, I grouped the frame types into kind of logical groups, such as the steel fire-rated frames, then the non-fire-rated aluminum frames, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And as we go in the process, we can add further description to these frame types if we want to. But this is really just a drop-down list we are selecting from. And then to get the actual frame types, I show you that. Oops. This is the sheet. You know, it can be done many different ways, but it's nothing else but a simple worksheet. And we can do the typical frames in this worksheet, and they can go on to the door schedule, and these numbers will relate to the numbers that you can select from the drop-down menus. Okay, next up. So the actual schedule will look something like this on a sheet. As I said, we can have these typical door elevations and then the schedule. Good. Let's go to the drone schedules. Oops, I lost. Of course, these in this case, I just demonstrate some of these larger glazed doors that we would have as a balcony door or anywhere else in a project. The concept is very similar, that we number them very, very similarly as we do with the doors. But then we will have to place them on a sheet. So let me just show you that one. Oops, that's the sheet. And that's the kind of end result. And in this case, I split it into two things. I will have a elevation schedule. I open the source view of that. That just spits out all the different window elevations or door elevations that we have according to the criteria, which are, in this case, I'm only looking at that one particular level. And I'm also making sure that they are not part of any hotlink, because if they are, obviously I can't edit them. Why would I want to edit them? Because I want to make sure I can create types. How do I create types? As you see, these two are identical, and they show as a separate. But if I merge them, that will merge into one cell. And know that they are in one cell, I can say that's type A, for example. And then I can say type B. And this is going to be a QA schedule for me as well, because if all of a sudden I have in this schedule something identical or almost identical popping up, then it's either a problem in my model or in my schedule. So I can check my schedule using this. And then I can go to my sheet and I can update sheet. And as I said, I have a separate schedule that actually shows the location and the individual number of them. But know that I have allocated some types. I can see them in the schedule. And this is just a very simple one. Okay, to show the settings, nothing really major in this one. But the last thing I need to show about these ones is great, but I would like to add some graphics, some dimensions, some detail markers, some other things like safety decal or any other detail. How do I do that? Ideally, I should be able to just open the source view and annotate it here. But because I merged items and there are loads and loads of items in the model, if I just add the annotation in and anything changes, there's a risk that I'm going to lose all that annotation, which is not good, especially not at the end of the project when we just want to publish our schedules and you realize that, oh, some of them disappeared. So far, the best idea I could come up with is that I go back to the finished sheet, is that we have a worksheet. I just opened that worksheet as a source view, which has the layout as a background. And in that layout, I can do whatever I want. I can add further detail markers. I can, unfortunately, this is manual, but I can check what drawing it should be shown on. For example, that should be, and I can add these elements. This one is a decal. I can add that to my project as I need. And unfortunately, still, it means that if something changes and we add more elements to the schedule, it will still shift on the sheet, but at least it doesn't mean I'm losing all my schedule elements. I just have to readjust the worksheet. So until Graphisoft comes up with a solution that makes sure that we can't lose annotation information, I think this might be the only solution. All right. So if once we have gone through all these methods of what we can put into our project, I just show you another last kind of floor where it is probably a good idea to collect all your typical doors that you would use in a project. In this case, it is on a negative floor in my template. And we just collated them all. And these are all the parameters that are available for that door. And we can use a label for that. But this is not for documenting. It is only for showing all users that what are the typical ones. And then you can actually pick from here and use that door in your project. Or you can trace reference this level and pick from that trace reference. And it also has all the typical glazed doors in it, which was quite a bit of work to put together, but it's done once, and then you can work from it. Okay, so I think that's what I had for you guys for today, and hopefully there could be some questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation today on Doors and Windows. I hope the people that are here live have taken some good takeaways from this. And for the people that are watching this back in the replay, feel free to, I'm assuming, Gordana, there'll be the ability to comment as part of this post that go once this video goes live. So people will be able to place questions in there and we could start conversations and topics with regards to this specific workflow. Our next workflow webinar will be in the middle to the back end of January. I can't remember the exact date, but we will have another exciting presentation for us to participate and learn from another user from across the world. So thanks everyone for your attendance today, and have a great Christmas and look forward to catching up with you in January.